Here's the proper history of muscle building in general. None of that bullshit mainstream advice, those typical gurus spitting out the same typical advice, which never ends up getting people the results they wanted in the first place. So I'm gonna go off observations, which is literally all you need, right? None of the bullshit geeky studies, which you could warp, you could have biases, you can even manipulate, especially if there's money on the line. Now, let's just look at what worked in the past. So I've got a few notes just about what has worked, right? You can look at the Russian Soviet Union, right? They did high reps, literally every time. That's how their training was built, on top of other things, obviously, right? But they literally won like every strength training. They were like on a different league entirely, right? Even the old bodybuilders used to do high volume, right? But they preach low volume, low reps, right? Which, I mean, some argue they're paid off by the gym industry to sell the dream and also to sell the machines. So that's a whole different topic. Again, I'm gonna just whiz through this, right? I could break down like each one like a full course, but I mean, just use a bit of common sense, right? Observation, and if you really wanted to go in depth into it, you could go into each category of your own, right? So another one is like the natural tribes. The nuclear overload guy I came across years ago goes over it. He gives examples, right? The typical like villages that ride the motorcycle to transport things in and out or to collect things usually have big legs, right, when they go up the hill. Typical, day-to-day training using a bike, for example, hitting the legs, high reps, high volume, right? Same principle literally applies to other tribes where they lift things on their shoulders. They end up having like huge ass shoulders. Same principle to gymnasts, right? They literally have huge arms, and the typical pulling, whatever they do, the typical things they do with the ring uses a lot of arm strength, and again, that's high volume, right? Even me, where I'm not like the perfect example, but I'm bigger than the average guy, and when I tell people I don't lift weights, they don't believe that, right? Just because I guess it's more like an intuition I had as a kid. I didn't want to lift weight because it would just stunt it would slow me down pretty much in speed. And my whole like goal was athleticism, right? So I didn't want to become this big chunky guy that could barely do anything, like just basics of running without getting tired in 30 seconds. I already made a video about that, bodybuilders versus athletes, and why bodybuilding is a stupid concept if you ask me, right? It's just for everything, for health, athleticism, mobility, just longevity in general, right? Again, Mike Tyson also done the same. His custom model, his coach, wasn't a fan of weights, right? So he obviously done a shit ton of high reps volume in his typical daily routine. But on top of that, he done loads of like body weight exercises throughout the day, right? So I'm not sure what the exact reps are, but they're in the hundreds, and some of them, like I think the squats were in the thousands, 1,000 or 2. And obviously he will split that across 10 or 5 reps. I'm not sure if this is verified, but I can imagine that to be true, right? Either way, he's still doing high reps. Another one is prisoners. Usually people that go to prison come out buff as shit, right? And typical training of prisoners is just straight high reps, right? I saw a story, some guy talking about it that went to prison. He did the typical science geeky style training with full range of motion push-ups, just as an example that he gave. They go all the way out, all the way in, and he looked at the prisoners and they were doing this like half set, like just spazzing it out, right? And he thought they were stupid, but a month or 2 later, whatever the timeline was exactly, they were like twice the size of him. So then he's took their routine and then he gained a lot of size. Again, the concept is you're under tension, right? The way the guy himself explained it is, once you go like all the way, you're using a completely different muscle group, and then you go back to the chest, another muscle group, so you're completely switching. But when you spaz it like this, that tension, that muscle groups is under tension, right? High volume. Again, same principle. So I mean, there's probably a shit ton of others, right? That's just the ones I got right now. It took me like a minute to come up with. And then obviously the funny thing is, the most, what's it called, the sciencey, geeky training fitness guys are usually the smallest, right? Or they're on some sort of substance. So the whole concept of this study bullshit, I don't see any need of. Obviously, like I said, observation is always best. I don't care what industry, what category, health, fitness, name it. Observation is always best. Obviously, you need a bit of common sense. Like me personally, right now, I created my own routine literally based on nature itself, right? I'm experimenting with it because I want to build muscle while keeping my athleticism as much as possible, which obviously you can do both, but I'm not trying to go the bodybuilding route. I already went a video over it, but pretty much the bodybuilders with their bench press, isolating muscle groups, it just doesn't make sense. It's unnatural, right? It's artificial. You're never gonna replicate that anywhere at all. And your body your whole body is a connected, system, especially when you look at the fascia. So when you're doing isolated, it just doesn't make any sense, right? You should be doing like whole body workouts, because like I said, everything's connected. So that's what I'm testing out. And then, for example, in nature, you wouldn't be doing 2-3 minute sets, rest, this bullshit gym guys do. I don't see the point of that. It's so stupid in my opinion. For example, let's say, my typical routine is like 45 minutes up to an hour, right? Tops, that's it, boom. And then during those, let's say 60 minutes for simplicity. During those 60 minutes, I'm literally training like 55 minutes of that, right? But then the average gym guy goes to do like an hour. And out of those hours, they're probably training like 20 minutes. Right, so in terms of volume, I'm doing much more volume. Even though I'm there for an hour, I'm doing 3x that volume. All right, I'm there for an hour, they're there for an hour. I'm training for like 50 minutes of the hour, but they're training like 20 minutes. So even if they were to do 3 hours in the gym, they're probably just about matching me. And then even then, with so many breaks in between, I doubt they get the same results. I've seen loads of anecdotes. Like I spoke about this, just the concept, with my dad yesterday, and even he told me the concept as well, because he has my uncle, his friend, I don't know what you'd call that. No, it's not uncle. Whatever it is, it's not uncle. They're not siblings. But either way, the point is, his friend used to rep out the gym. He used to go to the gym like 20 minutes in his usual outfit because he would never sweat, right? He would just go in the gym. He just cares about looks, right? So he would just rep out the biceps. But instead of going the full range of motion, he would just spaz it like this, literally, right? He was just telling me, same as the triceps, he would do the same thing for the triceps, and he would do the same for the abs, I think it was, whatever the thing was. And he was just in and out in 20 minutes. Boom, high rep, constantly, right? And he had a greater result than my dad, especially the arms, right? While putting less work. And my dad's there fatiguing all the way to failure, literally following the whole full range of motion, science geeked up, and he saw less results, which at the time he just couldn't fathom, right? He just thought it was a fluke or probably a genetic thing, so he never even incorporated his style, right? But now brought up yesterday, he'll see the logic. He can see the logic behind it from that one specific guy amongst many others, right? So this is a lot of information in a short video, because you can make this into a full-blown course, but you can go in depth as you like. This is just the overview, right? I don't like those long videos that overly do it, unless obviously you come in there to learn the full in-depth side of things. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Check out my other video where I compare the bodybuilding and just athletes in general and how stupid the concept of bodybuilding is, just on average. Not to mention the insecurity that people usually jump into it because of some stupid breakup, It's just fueled by the wrong motives. Which you could use the negative as a good thing, which I have videos about already. But the whole principle and just function behind it makes no sense. Oh yes, I just remembered. Obviously, diet helps speed everything up, right? It's an amplifier. So if you do the, shit diet, you'd see slower results. If you're on the right diet, you see faster results and just more, exponential. So obviously, I'm carnivore. So if you see my videos, you know why I prefer the carnivore. It's literally the best. So I'm not gonna go over that. It's a whole ass different topic. You can just check out my other videos. But yeah, combining all this high volume, high rep stuff, just replicating nature and what we used to do, right? Just typically what farmers would just do high reps. It's just the way you'd function in nature, in life, right? So combine that with the proper diet, which again what we used to eat, carnivore, right? Or at least animal based, right? At the bare minimum, 80% they say of your diet should be animal based. So yeah, that's pretty much it.